So I deleted TikTok. And let me explain why. Firstly, it was really damaging to my attention span, like no kidding. And secondly, it had become damaging to my relationship with God. And that one was the biggest pusher, the biggest reason why I decided that, you know what, this app, not for me. In fact, I recommend anybody who has it, just get rid of it. Now, the reason that I say this, the reason that I'm talking about this is TikTok is not just a problem, it's part of the bigger problem, and the bigger problem is the bad side of social media. Now, social media is amazing. We use it to connect with one another, and we can talk to people on the other side of the world, and we can spread the message of Christ and all of that. But social media has a bad side, and the bad side is that it is in the world, like the worldly influence is there. Like you'll be influenced by the world no matter what. Like to me, it became concerning when when the Holy Spirit just nudged me in my heart and was like, you know what, you're okay with watching videos with cursing on it. You know, you're when did that become the norm? When did that become okay? And then it wasn't just that, but it was other kinds of videos where you would have people who are semi-naked, and you're like, and I would be like, I guess in my mind, I would try to reason that, well, that's not why I'm watching the video. They just so happen to be part of it. I'm actually watching the video because there's ABC that's interesting in it, and that would be the case. But it was damaging my relationship with God because these things were still being fed into my mind. And it actually, I started to feel bad emotionally, and spiritually, my spiritual health started to decline. And so that's when the lights went on in my brain that, you know what, I got to get rid of this app. And it's not just TikTok, but it's also the whole habit that I've had to also apply to all other social media apps like Instagram, YouTube, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. Whenever I find myself scrolling through that or scrolling through even people's posts, I'm like, you know what? You shouldn't even be doing this. Get off the app and go do something in real life. And so that's really what this video is about, just talking about the fact that social media has become destructive, not just to our mental health and not just to our brains and our emotional health, but it's become very distractive to our spiritual health. And this is an epidemic and a pandemic that is going on all over the world. And we need to first recognize the problem in order to solve it. So that's what I'm talking about in this video. That scrolling, let's start there. Yeah, you know, all of these apps, all of these services, they're designed in such a way as to draw you in so that you get to that, for them, it's the golden zone of where you're scrolling and you're like 5 hours or 2 hours pass by and you're like, oh my goodness, what's the time? Oh, so much time has already gone. That's the way that these apps are designed, because the people, what do they want? They want your time, and your time is equal to money through advertisers and etc. And it's crazy because time is such a limited thing. If you were to say take the time that you have, let's say you live up to be like 80 years and you multiply that by 365.25, because there's a quarter of a day that we gather up in a leap year. Anyways, too much math. If you multiply that, that's like a few tens of thousands of days. And to think that those days, out of those days, so much of your time could go to screen time. And it became alarming to me when I looked at my screen time, and it was jaw-dropping. It was usually over 10 hours. It would be 16 hours, 12 hours, and all of that. In fact, you know what? Let me know what is your screen time. Go to your phone. Let me know what's your screen time for today right now in the comments. But yeah, it became very concerning. And so that's when the Lord really began to just work on me and tell me that eventually the Lord just told me, you know what? Delete TikTok. You don't need it. I make content on TikTok, so I was like, Lord, but what about that? So then I found TikTok Studio. So I still post to TikTok. I believe that posting is not a bad thing. Creating content is not a bad thing. But ultimately, it wouldn't be a good thing for us to be on these apps, to be on these platforms where we're spending so much of our time. And I think that alone should be enough to convince anyone to not spend so much time on these apps or to get rid of these apps. So then what would then be my conclusion? My conclusion would be delete TikTok, number one. And secondly, This is part of a cultural wave that technology and social media has brought, and it needs to be addressed ASAP. And that's what this video is about. So, what are a few things that I can recommend that I'm applying myself? I'm no expert. I'm also learning to walk this walk with Christ. And remember, if anything causes us to sin, we get rid of it. If anything distracts us from our walk with Christ, we get rid of it. If anything is coming in the way of our relationship with God, if any such thing, whatever it may be, doesn't matter how many people use it, doesn't matter how many Christians use it, if any habit or any such thing becomes destructive to our relationship with God, then we really need to address it, and we really need to bring it at the altar of God. We ought to bring every thought captive. We ought to bring everything captive to the obedience of Christ, because we've been called and we've been sold out to one. So first suggestion I would say is delete TikTok. This is something that I did. Secondly is stop scrolling. Like, stop spending time on Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, or any such. Just stop. And secondly, spend time on social media with intent. When you go on a social media platform, go there intending to do something and do it and leave it. If it's intending to post a story or whatever, post it and then get out. Don't stay there. And thirdly, I would say take the time that you'd spent with social media, and this is really concerning. The time that so much time that we spend with social media, that we spend on these apps, that we spend on our screens, we could actually be investing that in our relationship with God. And so many people say, I don't have time to read the Bible. I myself I'm not exempt from this. I also say that, oh, I don't have as much time to read the Bible. But if I were to go into my screen time and look at what's occupying my screen time, there are some things I can replace to put the Bible there, to put prayer there, to put seeking God there. Remember, the enemy comes to steal and to kill and destroy. And one of the best ways that he can steal and kill and destroy under our nose is if he can get us to be distracted. And so that's the big thing in our age. The enemy is distracting Christians and making them ineffective. He's distracting a lot of Christians, and he's made them so ineffective. And so I just want to address this issue, and I just want to bring it up. If you didn't know it, well, now you know. It's a problem that we need to address, every one of us. And it's not going to stop by being passive. We're going to have to be active in our attack, in the way that we come towards the problem. We're going to have to make some sacrifices, but it's worth it to be with God. It's worth it for a deeper relationship with God. So that's all for this video. And if you really like this video, I'm sure you'll enjoy this other video titled I Never Knew You, about how so many Christians and how so many so-called Christians are going to stand before Jesus, and he's going to say that I never knew you. I'll see you there. All right, peace.